What are, we'll call it, some of the biggest lessons that you learned from Louie Simmons when you were interning at Westside Barbell?
Dude, that's a great question, especially for the people who say that they really like the fitness content. This is, man, okay. Dude, this could take up 12 episodes.
Oh,
this could be a lot. So,
well, then maybe just pick one or two, or maybe we just riff on this. We'll see.
All right. So Louie, without going too much into his history, he somewhat recently passed away. The owner, creator of Westside Barbell, the strongest gym in the world. When I trained there, their weakest guy, aside from me, squatted 800 pounds. That was their chump lifter. He is the reason that we know so much about strength and conditioning now, because so much of what we know about strength and conditioning actually comes from Eastern Europe, specifically Russian weightlifters. Louie served overseas. And so much of they called these, like, the Russians dominated the weightlifting world for years and years and years. You look at the Olympics, the Russians, Bulgarians, they dominated, and they called them the Russian training secrets, and no one knew how they were getting so strong. And Louie literally took training books from Russia, brought them back to the United States, and paid someone to translate them, which is just wild.
That's cool.
And Louie is the reason that we now know so much about strength and conditioning, and why the United States is one of the leaders in strength and conditioning now, because of the groundwork that Louie paved the way with. And he created the Westside Barbell conjugate system. And there are many different styles of program design, right? There's linear periodization, there's undulating periodization, there's conjugated periodization, there's many different types. There's block periodization, there's all different types. And Louie saw so many faults in the other types of periodization, whether it was linear or undulating or whatever. He never thought they were bad. He actually thought linear was best for brand new trainees, which I completely agree with. Like, linear periodization is the best for someone who's brand new to strength training. But what Louie noticed was, whether it was block periodization or undulating periodization or any other type of periodization, as you went from intermediate to advanced, they had serious faults that were unreconcilable. And that's how he came up with the conjugate periodization approach, which essentially took the best of all of them and eliminated the worst of all of them to make this, like, ultimate periodization model, which is still the periodization model that I use with the Inner Circle. I use it with all my clients except for brand new beginners. So yeah, actually the first starting program in the Inner Circle, I call it the Unicorn Strong Challenge. That program is linear periodization, and then everything else switches more towards conjugated once people are done with that 12-week phase. So people start with linear and then progress to conjugate.
Do you have, off the top of your head, no worries if you don't, but an example of something that Louie didn't like about DUP or block periodization?
Yeah. So block periodization, for an example, is basically your training gets separated into blocks. That's where the name comes from. So you have a maximal strength block, you have a hypertrophy block, you have a power block, right? And each block, it depends, the length of that block depends on where you are in your training, where you are relative to maybe your competitive season. If you're an athlete, are you immediately post-competitive season? Are you immediately leading up to competitive season? Are you in the competitive season? The blocks will change based on where you are and what your goal is when you want to peak, all of that. But the major issue with block is it's very good at increasing whatever it is you're trying to increase in that one block. So if it's a power block, then you will get way more powerful as long as you're programming it correctly. You'll get more powerful, you get more explosive, quick, more agile, all of that. But because the entire block is focused just on power, you radically detrain everything else that you've done. You detrain your maximal strength, you detrain your hypertrophy, you detrain so many other strength qualities and characteristics. And so that was his major qualm with block. I've never used the word qualm in my life before that.
I think that was right.
Linear Louie loved linear, and he did linear for many, many years. The issue is, if you spend a few minutes watching Louie talk, you'll see that he had some insane injuries throughout his lifting career. And this guy, he was out of his fucking mind. And I love Louie to death. He treated me like a son. There are stories where he would go to the gym, or he'd have to go to the hospital, get a knee surgery, or get something like something put in his neck. He'd have to get like a trach in his neck, and he would leave the hospital and he would just go bench press, or he'd go lift immediately while he still has the trach in his neck. Something like, it's wild, the stuff that he would do. So with linear periodization, Louie the whole goal is to essentially try and increase strength and lift more as often as you possibly can. And when you have someone especially as crazy as Louie, they're going to be doing it way, way, way too much. But even if you don't have someone who's crazy, you need a certain amount of recovery. And linear, after the point of newbie gains, after the beginner stage, it can be very difficult to recover enough. And so you'll notice a large increase in injuries, burnout, fatigue. You'll see a huge increase in CNS fatigue. You'll see a huge increase in lack of desire to actually want to train. You'll notice a lot of twinges and pain and aches and injuries cropping up. So that was Louie's major issue with linear periodization. So essentially what he did is he created Conjugate, which the whole purpose is you have one main focus, but instead of detraining everything, you do just enough to maintain all of your other strength qualities while you really improve one at a time. So maybe this one focus is maximal strength, or this one focus is speed, or this one focus is hypertrophy, and that's your main focus for whatever this macro cycle is. But you still include the other things in relatively small amounts so you don't completely detrain them. I think it's one of the genius things about what Louie did is he realized you didn't need to do a lot in order to maintain. You didn't need to have a huge amount of volume, a huge amount of intensity in order to maintain strength, in order to maintain hypertrophy, in order to maintain speed. You just need a little bit. And as long as you include a little bit here and there, you'll at the very least maintain it so that when you come back to it in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you get right where you left off, as opposed to having to build back up from ground zero again.
I love it.